Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Hughes Harmony, watching the stars drift past through the large viewing window. His ship was not built for war. It had comfortable meeting rooms, translation centers, and peaceful white corridors. The Harmony was designed to bring people together, not tear them apart. "Captain, we're getting a message from the Zephyrian ship," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her communication station. Her voice was calm and professional, just like everything else about the human crew. Jake nodded and straightened his dark blue uniform. "Put them through, Amy." The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that looked like it was made of living crystal. The Zephyrian's body caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Captain Morrison," the alien said, "I am Trade Leader Valkyris. Our discussion with the Nimbus Collective has reached another dead end. They refuse our offer completely." Jake sighed quietly. The Zephyrians and the Nimbus Collective had been fighting over mining rights for 3 months. The Zephyrians wanted to dig crystals from a small moon. The Nimbus Collective, who were made of gas and energy, claimed the moon was sacred to their ancestors. "I understand your frustration, Trade Leader," Jake said in his steady voice. "But we've made progress. Yesterday, both sides agreed to meet. In the same room. That's something." Commander Lisa Hayes walked up to stand beside Jake. She was the ship's best diplomat, known throughout the galaxy for solving problems that others thought impossible. Lisa had short brown hair and kind eyes. That made even the angriest aliens want to trust her. "Trade Leader Valkyris," Lisa said, "what if we tried a different approach? Instead of focusing on who owns the moon, what if we talked about sharing its benefits?" The crystal being's light dimmed slightly, which Jake knew meant the Zephyrian was thinking hard. After 30 years of working with alien species, humans had learned to read their body language and emotions. "The Nimbus Collective will never agree to share," Valkyris said. "They believe we will pollute their sacred space." "Then let's address that concern," Lisa replied. "What if your mining operation included a shrine to honor their ancestors?" "What? If part of the profits went to maintaining their holy sites across the galaxy?" Jake watched the alien's crystalline face carefully. He could see the idea taking hold. This was how humans worked. They found ways for everyone to win. They built bridges instead of walls. "I will discuss this with my council," Valkyris said finally. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your words." The screen went dark, and Amy turned back to her station. "The Nimbus Collective is requesting a meeting in 1 hour, Captain. They want to hear our new proposal." Jake smiled. This was the part of his job he loved most. In 2 hours, he would sit in a room with beings made of crystal and creatures made of gas. And somehow they would all find a way to be friends. "Lisa, prepare the conference room. Make sure the environmental controls can handle both species at the same time." "Already done, Captain," Lisa said with a grin. "I've been working on this setup for days." Dr. Ben Parker, the ship's chief science officer, looked up from his station. "Captain, I've been analyzing the moon's mineral composition. There's something interesting here." Jake walked over to Ben's workstation. The doctor was Jake's age, with gray hair and glasses that made him look like the professor he used to be. "What did you find, Ben?" "The crystals the Zephyrians want aren't just valuable for trade," Ben explained, pointing to his screen. "They have unique properties that could help the Nimbus Collective communicate across longer distances. If they worked together, both species could benefit more than either could alone." Lisa's eyes lit up. "That's perfect. If we can show them how cooperation helps both sides, this won't just be about sharing costs. It'll be about sharing benefits." Jake nodded approvingly. This was how his crew worked. They didn't just solve problems, they found opportunities. Every challenge became a chance to make the galaxy A little bit better. The next hour passed quickly as the crew prepared for the meeting. Jake changed into his formal diplomatic uniform, the one with golden braids that showed his rank as a senior peacekeeper. Lisa gathered her files and prepared her presentation materials. The whole ship buzzed with quiet activity. When the time came, representatives from both species arrived at the Harmony's conference room. The Zephyrians came in a shuttle that looked like a flying diamond. The Nimbus Collective arrived as a cloud of glowing gas that shaped itself into their ship. The conference room was a marvel of human engineering. One side was kept cool and solid for the crystal beings. The other side was filled with the right gases and energy fields for the Nimbus creatures. In the middle was a space where humans could sit and talk to both groups. Trade leader Vel Kreese entered first, his crystal body catching the room's lights and casting rainbow patterns on the walls. Behind him came 3 other Zephyrians, all glowing with different colors. From the other side, the Nimbus Collective flowed into their section like a gentle storm. Their speaker, who called himself Windsinger Orden, formed into a rough human, shape made of silver mist. "Welcome, friends," Jake said as he took his seat at the middle table. "Thank you both for coming. I know this hasn't been easy." "Nothing about this has been easy," Windsinger Orden said. His voice sounded like a whisper that came from everywhere at once. "The Zephyrians want to dig holes in our sacred moon." "We only want to mine the crystals," Vel Kreese replied, his light flashing brighter. "We mean no disrespect to your beliefs." Lisa held up her hand gently. "I understand both of your concerns. But Dr. Parker has discovered something that might change how we look at this situation." She activated the room's hologram projector, showing a 3-dimensional image of the disputed moon. The crystals inside glowed with soft blue light. "These crystals are special," Lisa explained. "They can carry and amplify energy signals across vast distances. Trade leader Vel Kreese, your people could mine and sell them as planned. But Windsinger Orden, your people could use them to connect with Nimbus Collective communities across the entire galaxy." Both aliens leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "Your ancestors' spirits could speak to their descendants on 1,000 worlds," Lisa continued. "Instead of one sacred moon, you could have a sacred network spanning the stars." The room fell silent. Jake could see both species thinking hard about this new possibility. This was the moment when peace was made or lost. Everything depended on whether they could see past their differences to the benefits of working together. "The profits from mining would pay for building this network," Lisa added. "The Zephyrians get their crystals, and Nimbus Collective gets to honor their ancestors in ways they never imagined, and both species gain something more valuable than either could achieve alone." Windsinger Orden's misty form swirled thoughtfully. "This would require great trust between our peoples. Trust that we would be honored to help you build," Vel Kreese said, his light now steady and warm. Jake smiled. He had seen this moment hundreds of times before. It was the instant when enemies became partners, when problems became opportunities, when the galaxy became a little more peaceful. "Shall we begin drafting an agreement?" he asked. Both aliens nodded, and Jake felt the familiar satisfaction of another successful negotiation. This was what humans did best. They found ways for everyone to win. The emergency alert woke Jake Morrison from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters aboard the U's Harmony, and the ship's computer spoke in its calm, measured voice. "Captain Morrison, please report to the bridge immediately. Priority. Alpha message from Earth Command." Jake rolled out of bed and grabbed his uniform. Priority Alpha meant something terrible was happening. In 30 years of service, he had only seen that alert 3 times. Each time, it meant war was coming. The bridge was already busy when Jake arrived. Lisa Hayes stood at the communication station with a worried look on her face. Dr. Ben Parker was at his science console, pulling up star charts and data files. Amy Foster was coordinating with other human ships in the area. "What's the situation?" Jake asked as he took his captain's chair. "Admiral Kate Sullivan sent this message 20 minutes ago," Lisa said, activating the main screen. Admiral Sullivan appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center of Earth's military headquarters. "All human vessels, this is Earth Command with Emergency Protocol 2, the Admiral sighed. "The Galactic Council has received an ultimatum from a species calling themselves the Void Hunters. They demand tribute from all Council worlds, or they will begin systematic destruction of our colonies." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Council had faced many threats before, but never anything like this. These Void Hunters have already destroyed 12 systems in the Outer Rim. Admiral Sullivan continued. "They leave nothing behind. No survivors, no infrastructure, nothing. Just empty space where civilizations used to be." The screen showed images that made Jake's crew gasp. Entire planets reduced to cosmic dust. Space stations torn apart down to their basic atoms. Millions of beings simply gone, as if they had never existed. "The Council is assembling a defense fleet at the Kepler system," the Admiral said. "All human ships are ordered to join immediately. This is not a peacekeeping mission. This is total war." The message ended, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. Jake looked at his crew, seeing fear and determination in their faces. These people had spent years solving problems with words and handshakes. Now they were being asked to fight for the survival of the galaxy. "Amy, set course for the Kepler system, maximum speed," Jake ordered. "Lisa, send messages to all nearby human vessels. Tell them to meet us there." "Already done, Captain," Amy replied. "The UES Liberty, UES Cooperation, and 9 other ships are changing course to join us." Jake nodded. 12 human ships against an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. It didn't seem like enough, but it was what they had. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. The human fleet gathered at the edge of the Kepler system, where hundreds of alien ships were already waiting. Jake had never seen so many. Different species working together. There were the massive warships of the Ursine hegemony, looking like flying bears made of metal and weapons. The sleek fighters of the Avian Collective darted between larger vessels like angry birds. The Draknari Empire had sent their finest battleships, each one bristling with enough firepower to level a city. "Captain, we're receiving a message from the fleet commander," Amy announced. The main screen showed General Tor Malek of the Ursine hegemony. He was exactly what Jake expected from his species, huge, covered in brown fur, with teeth designed for tearing apart enemies, the generals. Ship was 3 times larger than the Harmony, and carried enough weapons to fight a war by itself. "Human vessels," General Tor Malek growled. "You will take positions in the rear guard. Your ships are not built for real combat. Stay back and handle supply duties while the warriors do the fighting." Jake felt his crew tense with anger. "Lieutenant." Commander Ryan Parker, the ship's tactical officer, looked like he wanted to say something sharp. Ben Parker shook his head in disgust. Even gentle Lisa had a hard look in her eyes, but Jake just nodded calmly. "Understood, General. We'll take whatever position serves the fleet best." The screen went dark, and Jake could hear angry muttering from his bridge crew. "Captain, with respect, that was insulting," Ryan said. "Our ships might not look like theirs, but we're not helpless." Jake turned to look at his tactical officer. Ryan Parker was young but brilliant, with short black hair and intense brown eyes. He had been born on a colony world and joined the human fleet to see the galaxy. Like most humans, he preferred peace to war, but he was ready to fight when necessary. Ryan, send a coded message to all human ships, Jake said quietly. Tell them to prepare Protocol 7. The bridge fell silent. Protocol 7 was something they had all learned about in training, but none of them had ever expected to use it. It was a set of procedures developed during humanity's darkest period, when Earth's nations had fought wars that nearly destroyed their entire species. Captain, Ben asked carefully, are you sure about Protocol 7? I know what it is, Ben, Jake said. And yes, I'm sure. Lisa looked confused. Jake, what is Protocol 7? I've never heard of it. It's a military protocol, Ryan explained, his voice suddenly very serious. When human forces switch to Protocol 7, it means we stop being peacekeepers and start being soldiers. All human personnel will report to their combat stations, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. We are now operating. Under Protocol 7, diplomatic mission status is suspended. Throughout the ship, Jake's crew began to change. The people who had spent years negotiating peace and solving problems with words were transforming into something else. Something harder and more dangerous. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Carol Dean began activating systems that most of the crew didn't even know existed. Hidden weapon ports opened along the ship's hull. Advanced sensors came online, capable of tracking enemies through stealth fields and energy barriers. The Harmony's peaceful appearance remained the same, but underneath, it was becoming a predator. In the weapons bay, Sergeant Alex Carter and his security team checked equipment that had been locked away for decades. These weren't the simple stunners used for crowd control. These were weapons designed to end fights quickly and permanently. Captain, Amy said from her station, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Void Hunter fleet. They're entering the system. The main screen showed space itself seeming to tear open. Through the rips in reality came ships unlike anything Jake had ever seen. They were black as deep space, covered in spikes and sharp edges. Each one looked like it had been designed by someone who enjoyed causing pain. My God, Ben whispered. There are hundreds of them. The alien alliance formed up into traditional battle lines. The Ursine ships took the center, with the avian fighters providing support. The Draknari formed the left flank, while other species filled in the gaps. It was an impressive sight. Thousands of ships ready to defend their homes. The human ships, ordered to stay in the rear, seemed almost forgotten. They floated quietly at the edge of the battle formation, ignored by both sides. Ryan, activate stealth systems, Jake ordered. Stealth systems online, Captain. We're invisible to their sensors now. All human ships, this is Morrison, Jake said over the encrypted channel. Begin Fade Protocol. Time to show these Void Hunters what happens when you threaten our friends. One by one, the 12 human ships vanished from sensors. The alien alliance was too focused on the approaching enemy to notice. The Void Hunters were broadcasting some kind of terrifying message that made the other species nervous and angry. But the humans were no longer there to see it. They had faded into the darkness between stars, becoming ghosts in the void. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's military history was classified and why humans preferred peace to the alternative. Jake sat in his captain's chair, watching his crew work with cold efficiency. The friendly diplomats were gone. In their place were the descendants of a species that had learned to wage war so well that they had frightened themselves into choosing peace. All stations report ready, Captain, Ryan said quietly. Then let's begin, Jake replied. Time to hunt some hunters. The combined fleet hung in space like a wall of metal and fire. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Harmony as hundreds of alien warships prepared for battle. Each species had brought their finest vessels, their best warriors, there. Most advanced weapons. The communication channels buzzed with activity. Generals and admirals from across the galaxy shared battle plans, made threats against the Void Hunters, and boasted about their weapons. The noise was constant and loud. By the sacred flames of Draknar, we will burn these invaders from space, roared Commander Zethkar of the Draknari Empire. His ship was a massive thing covered in weapon ports and armor plating thick enough to stop asteroids. The avian collective fears no enemy, screeched Wing Leader Talonstrike. Our fighters will tear them apart like prey. Even the normally calm Zephyrians were making bold statements. Our crystal weapons will cut through their ships like light through darkness, announced War Leader Velkash. But from the human ships, there was only silence. Jake sat quietly in his captain's chair, watching the enemy fleet approach. The Void Hunters moved in a formation that looked like a giant spider spreading its legs across space. Their ships were ugly things, all sharp edges and spikes, painted black as the void between stars. "Captain," Amy Foster said from her communication station, "General Tormalik is asking why we're not responding to the fleet communications." Jake didn't answer immediately. He was watching Lieutenant Commander Ryan Parker work at his tactical station. Ryan's fingers moved across his controls with practiced precision, but he wasn't preparing the ship's visible weapons. Instead, he was activating systems that didn't officially exist. "Tell the General we're maintaining communication." "Discipline," Jake said finally. What he didn't say was that the human ships were already talking to each other. They used encrypted burst transmissions that lasted only microseconds, hidden inside normal sensor sweeps. To outside observers, the human fleet appeared completely silent and possibly even inactive. Dr. Ben Parker looked up from his science station. "Captain, the enemy fleet is larger than we thought. I'm counting over 800 vessels." Lisa Hayes frowned as she studied the tactical display. "That's twice the size of our Alliance fleet. How did they build so many ships?" "They didn't build them," Jake said quietly. "They took them. Every ship in that fleet once belonged to a civilization the Void Hunters destroyed. They stripped the technology, rebuild the vessels, and add them to their own force." The thought made Jake's crew uncomfortable. Somewhere in that approaching fleet were ships that had once protected peaceful worlds, now turned into weapons of destruction. "All human vessels, this is Morrison," Jake said over the encrypted channel. "Confirm ready status for Protocol 7. Operations. U.E.'s Liberty ready," came the quiet response from Captain Helen Foster. "Use cooperation ready," reported Captain Sam Wilson. One by one, the other 10 human ships confirmed their readiness. While the alien alliance prepared for a traditional space battle, the human fleet was implementing a completely different kind of warfare. "Stealth systems are operating at maximum efficiency," Ryan reported. "Enemy sensors can't detect us." "Environmental. Suits are distributed and checked," added Chief Engineer Carol Dean over the internal communication system. "All boarding teams are ready?" Jake nodded. The other species thought of space combat as ship fighting ship, trading fire until one side was destroyed. Humans had learned to think differently. They had learned to treat enemy ships not as opponents to destroy, but as targets to capture or neutralize. "Captain," Amy said, "the Void Hunters are broadcasting something. The universal translators are having trouble with it, but I think it's a message." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of a Void Hunter command ship. The being on screen was tall and thin, with pale gray skin and black eyes that seemed to absorb light. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Beings of the Galactic Council," the creature said, "I am Hunt Leader Vexmore of the Void Hunters. You have chosen to resist our generous offer of tribute. This choice will cost you everything." Behind the Hunt Leader, Jake could see other Void Hunters working at control stations. They moved with mechanical precision, showing no emotion or personality. These weren't warriors fighting for honor or glory. They were predators hunting prey. "Your ships are impressive," Vexmore continued, "but we have consumed the fleets of 50 civilizations. Your technology, your tactics, your courage, we have seen it all before. We have taken it all and made it our own." The screen showed images that made Jake's crew look away. Entire populations being processed through massive machines. Cities being stripped down to their basic materials. Worlds left as empty, lifeless rocks. "You will surrender now, or you will join the countless billions who have fed our hunger," the hunt leader said. "Choose quickly. Our patience has limits." The transmission ended, leaving the fleet in shocked silence. For a moment, even the boastful alien commanders had nothing to say. Then General Tormalik's voice roared across the communication channels. "We do not surrender to monsters. All ships, prepare for battle." The alien fleet surged forward, weapons charging and shields activating. The Ursine ships led the charge, their massive guns already firing at extreme range. The avian fighters swarmed ahead like angry insects. The Draknari ships spread out to flank the enemy formation, but the 12 human ships simply vanished. Jake watched his tactical display as the human fleet scattered into the darkness between stars. Each ship had a specific mission, a particular target, a role to play in what was coming. The aliens thought they were about to fight a battle. The humans were about to conduct an extermination. "Ryan, what's our primary target?" Jake asked. "The enemy command cluster, Captain. 3 large ships at the center of their formation. Intelligence suggests that's where Hunt Leader Vexmore is located. And our approach route? We'll swing wide around the battle, use the debris field from the destroyed planets as cover, and come at them from their blind spot. Estimated time to target, 47 minutes. Jake nodded. While the alien alliance fought the Void Hunters in open battle, drawing their attention and keeping them busy, the human ships would strike at the enemy's heart. It was a tactic as old as warfare itself, but executed with technology and precision. That would have seemed like magic to Earth's ancient generals. "Carol, how are our special systems?" Jake asked over the communication link. "All quantum torpedoes are armed and ready, Captain," the chief engineer replied. "Boarding pods are loaded with full combat teams. Virus programs are prepared for upload to enemy computer systems." "Good. Ben, what do your scans tell us about enemy ship construction?" Dr. Parker studied his readings carefully. "They're using a mixture of technologies, Captain. Some of it looks familiar, probably taken from civilizations we know. But there are energy signatures I don't recognize. These ships might be more dangerous than they appear, or less dangerous than they want." "US to think," Lisa added. "If they're using stolen technology, they might not understand it as well as the original builders did." Jake smiled grimly. Lisa was thinking like a human again, looking for weaknesses, finding opportunities in problems. The diplomatic training had taught her to read people and situations, skills that worked just as well in warfare as in peace. Negotiations. "All stations prepare for combat approach," Jake announced. "Remember, we're not here to win a glorious battle. We're here to end the threat. Make it quick, make it clean, and make it final." Around the bridge, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Amy monitored enemy communications, listening for signs of panic or confusion. Ben analyzed sensor data, looking for weak points in enemy ships. Ryan coordinated with other human vessels, timing their approach for maximum impact. In the distance, the alien alliance clashed with the Void Hunter fleet in spectacular fashion. Explosions lit up space like new stars being born. Ships on both sides traded devastating volleys of energy weapons and missile mirages. It was the kind of battle that would be remembered in songs and stories for generations. But Jake wasn't watching the battle. He was watching the countdown timer on his tactical display. In 38 minutes, the galaxy would learn why humanity's peaceful nature was a choice, not a weakness. In 38 minutes, the Void Hunters would discover what happened when you threatened a species that had once nearly destroyed itself through warfare. In 38 minutes, the silence of the human fleet would end, and the real battle would begin. All human ships report ready for final approach, Ryan announced quietly. Then let's go hunting, Jake replied, and the U's harmony disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying death to those who thought themselves the galaxy's ultimate predators. The first sign that something was wrong came from the void. Hunter supply ships. Hunt-leader Vexmore stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the battle unfold through the massive viewing ports. The alien alliance was fighting bravely, just as dozens of other civilizations had fought before them. Their ships traded fire with his fleet in the traditional way honor-bound fools, who announced their attacks and fought in neat formations. The Ursine ships are stronger than expected, reported his tactical officer, a thin creature with pale skin and dead eyes. They have destroyed 7 of our vessels. Vexmore nodded without concern. We have 800 ships. They have 400. Simple mathematics will decide this battle. But then the reports started coming in from the rear areas, where his supply fleet waited in safety behind the main battle line. Hunt leader, his communications officer, said, "We have lost contact with Supply Group 7. Equipment failure." Vexmore replied, "Send a repair crew." Hunt leader, Supply Group 3 is not responding to our signals. Solar interference. Try a different frequency. Hunt leader, Supply Group 1's automated systems show all crew members are unconscious. Vexmore turned away from the battle. "What did you say?" "Their life signs are present but inactive, Hunt leader, as if they are all sleeping." For the first time in decades, Vexmore felt a cold touch of fear. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered an enemy that could put entire ship crews to sleep without being detected. "Send fighters to investigate," he ordered. The response came back within minutes. "Hunt leader, the supply ships are intact but empty. No crew members found. No signs of violence. They simply vanished." Across the Void Hunter fleet, similar reports were flooding in. Support vessels going silent without distress calls. Communication relays stopping their transmissions in mid-sentence. Fuel tankers drifting dead in space with no one aboard. "How many ships have gone silent?" Vexmore demanded. 47 and counting, Hunt leader. Jake Morrison crouched in the ventilation shaft of a Void Hunter battleship, listening to the alien crew panic below him. Through his helmet's display, he could see the thermal signatures of 12 enemy soldiers searching for intruders who had already moved on to other parts of the ship. "Bridge team, this is Morrison," he whispered into his communication device. "Engine room is secure. Proceeding to weapons control." "Copy that, Captain," came Ryan Parker's voice. "Command center is ours. Their computer systems are surprisingly easy to hack." "That's because they're using stolen technology," added Dr. Ben Parker from somewhere else in the ship. "They understand how to operate it, but not how to protect it." Jake smiled grimly as he crawled through the narrow space toward his next target. The Void Hunters had made the same mistake that many conquerors made. They assumed that having superior numbers meant they were superior fighters. Behind him, he could hear the soft footsteps of Sergeant Alex Carter and Corporal Maria Rodriguez. Like Jake, they wore advanced stealth suits that made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Like Jake, they carried weapons that made no sound and left no trace. "Movement sensors show 3 hostiles in the next room," Maria whispered. "Want me to take them?" "Negative," Jake replied. "Use the sleep gas. We want them unconscious, not dead. Copy that, Captain. Jake reached a ventilation grate and peered down into the weapons control room. 3 Void Hunters worked at computer terminals, trying to understand why their ship's guns had stopped firing. They looked frustrated and confused, pressing buttons that no longer worked. Maria dropped a small canister through the grate. It rolled across the floor, releasing an invisible gas that the Void Hunters never noticed. Within seconds, all 3 aliens collapsed at their stations, breathing slowly and peacefully. Weapons control secured, Jake reported. Alex, how's the crew quarters? All hostiles are sleeping soundly, Captain. We've collected their personal weapons and locked them in the cargo bay. Jake nodded with satisfaction. This was how humans fought when they stopped being diplomatic. They didn't destroy enemy ships. They captured them. They didn't kill enemy crews. They neutralized them. They turned the enemy's own resources against them. All teams, this is Morrison. Ship is secure. Prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2 was where things got interesting. Ryan. Parker sat in the captured ship's command center, his fingers flying over the alien control systems. Around him, other human technicians worked to take complete control of the vessel's functions. Captain, I'm into their central computer, Ryan reported. Uploading the virus package now. A virus was a piece of software that human military programmers had spent decades perfecting. It didn't just shut down enemy systems. It made them work for humans instead. Within minutes, the captured Void Hunter ship would be transmitting false information to the rest of their fleet. Virus upload complete, Ryan announced. This ship is now reporting that it's under attack by Alliance forces. Other Void Hunter. Ships are moving to help defend it. Excellent, Jake said as he climbed down from the ventilation system. That should draw some of their fleet away from the main battle. Throughout the Void Hunter formation, similar scenes were playing out. Human boarding teams moved through enemy ships like ghosts, capturing them one by one. The aliens never saw them coming and never understood what was happening until it was too late. Captain Helen Foster of the UES Liberty stood on the bridge of a captured Void Hunter supply ship, watching her crew turn it into a human vessel. The ship's original crew was sleeping peacefully in the cargo hold, unharmed but completely out of the fight. Helen, this is Jake, came the voice over her communication system. How's your progress? We've captured 12 supply ships and converted them to our use, Helen replied. The Void Hunters are starting to run low on fuel and ammunition. Good. Sam, what's your status? Captain Sam Wilson was aboard another captured vessel, deep in the heart of the enemy formation. We've taken control of their main communication hub, Jake. I can hear everything they're saying to each other. And what are they saying? They're scared, Sam replied with satisfaction. They keep talking about ghost ships and invisible enemies. Their hunt leader is ordering them to fall back and regroup. Jake felt a cold smile cross his face. The Void Hunters were experiencing something they had never felt before, fear of the unknown. For centuries, they had been the predators stalking helpless prey. Now they were learning what it felt like to be hunted. All human ships, this is Morrison, Jake announced. Begin Phase 3. Time to end this. Phase 3 was the finale. Hunt leader. Vexmore watched his fleet falling apart around him. Nearly 100 ships had gone silent. Their crews vanished without a trace. His supply lines were cut, his communications were compromised, and his carefully planned battle formation was collapsing into chaos. All ships fall back to defensive positions, he ordered. Something is hunting us. But even as he gave the order, Vexmore knew it was too late. His flagship shuddered as something attached to its hull. Emergency lights began flashing as systems failed throughout the ship. Hunt leader, we have intruders, his security chief reported. They're everywhere. At once, we can't stop them. Vexmore drew his personal weapon, a device that could cut through solid metal. Then we'll make our stand here on the bridge. But when the bridge doors opened, no enemies charged through. Instead, a small canister rolled across the floor, releasing a sweet-smelling gas that made Vexmore's vision blur, and his thoughts slowed out as consciousness faded. The last thing he saw was a human figure stepping out of the shadows. The being was smaller than a Void Hunter, but moved with a deadly confidence that spoke of absolute mastery over the situation. "Hunt Leader Vexmore," the human said in a calm, professional voice. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth. Ship Harmony. You and your crew are now prisoners of the Galactic Alliance. Your ships have been captured, your weapons disabled, and your threat to peaceful civilizations has been ended." Vexmore tried to speak, but the gas had made his tongue thick and useless. "You may be wondering how we did this," Jake continued. "The answer is simple. You hunt civilizations that fight like civilizations, with honor, with warning, with mercy. But humans learned long ago that some enemies don't deserve mercy. Some threats must be ended completely and finally." The hunt leader's eyes closed as the sleep gas took full effect. Jake stood over the unconscious alien, feeling no satisfaction in the victory. This wasn't about glory or revenge. It was about protecting innocent people from monsters who would never stop hunting. "All human ships, this is Morrison," Jake said into his communication device. "Operation complete. All Void Hunter vessels have been captured or disabled. Enemy threat has been neutralized." The response came back from across the captured fleet. Every human captain reported the same thing: total success with 0 casualties on either side. The Void Hunters were alive but unconscious, their ships under human control, their weapons turned off in the distance. The alien alliance was still fighting desperately against what they thought was the main Void Hunter fleet. But those ships were now being operated by human crews, their weapons firing harmless light shows instead of deadly energy beams. "Amy, open a channel to General Tormalik," Jake ordered as he walked back toward his own ship. "Channel open, Captain." "General, this is Captain Maury." Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council, her expression calm and professional. Behind her, a massive display screen showed the captured Void Hunter fleet, 812 vessels that had once been the terror of the galaxy, now floating quietly under human guard. The council chamber was packed with beings from across known space. Crystalline Zephyrians caught the light and threw it back in nervous rainbow patterns. Gaseous members of the Nimbus Collective swirled in agitated clouds. The massive Ursine representatives sat in reinforced chairs, their fur standing on end, with amazement and fear. "Honored representatives," Admiral Sullivan began, "I am here to present the official after-action report on the Void Hunter incident." Council Leader Yethmore, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Galactic Alliance centuries ago, leaned forward on his floating platform. "Admiral Sullivan, before we review your report, this council has many questions. How did 12 human ships accomplish what our combined fleets thought impossible?" Admiral Sullivan activated the display screen, showing tactical recordings of the battle. "The human fleet implemented Protocol 7, a military doctrine developed during our species' pre-space period, while Alliance forces engaged the enemy. In traditional fleet combat, human vessels used advanced stealth technology to systematically capture enemy ships." "Capture?" interrupted General Tormalik. "You mean you didn't destroy them?" "Correct, General. Human military philosophy prioritizes neutralizing threats with minimal destruction of resources or loss of life. The Void Hunter crews are alive and unharmed. Their ships have been disabled but remain intact." A murmur ran through the council chamber. Ambassador Kethvar of the Draknari Empire stood up, his scaled face showing confusion and concern. "Admiral, with respect to your methods, this council was never informed that humanity possessed such advanced military capabilities. For 30 years, your species has been known as negotiators and peacekeepers." Admiral Sullivan nodded. "That is correct, Ambassador. Earth's military capabilities are classified information, known only to our highest government levels." "Why?" demanded Council Leader Yethmore. "Why hide such abilities from your allies?" Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Because, honored Council Leader, we learned long ago that some knowledge is too dangerous to share freely." She activated another display, showing historical records from Earth's past. Images of devastated cities, poisoned landscapes, and wars that had nearly ended human civilization entirely. Before we reached space, humans fought wars that consumed entire continents. We developed weapons that could destroy our planet many times over. We came very close to making our own species extinct through warfare. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "When we finally reached the stars," Admiral Sullivan continued, "we made a choice. We would keep our most destructive capabilities secret and focus on peaceful cooperation with other species. We became diplomats and mediators because we never wanted to see the galaxy torn apart by the kind of wars that nearly destroyed our own world." Dr. Meltan of the Scientific Collective raised a crystalline appendage. "Admiral, what you're describing suggests that humans are capable of considerable military action." "That is correct, Doctor." "How considerable?" Admiral Sullivan looked directly at the scientist. "Doctor, the Void Hunters destroyed 50 civilizations over the course of 2 centuries. 12 human ships neutralized their entire fleet in less than 4 hours. I leave you to draw your own conclusions about our capabilities." The silence in the chamber was now complete. Representatives who had known humans as friendly negotiators were struggling to process this new information. Ambassador Kethvar spoke again, his voice much more respectful than before. "Admiral, this council needs to understand. If humans possess such abilities, why do you choose to remain peaceful?" "Because peace is better than the alternative," Admiral Sullivan replied simply. "We've seen what happens when intelligent species turn their creativity toward destruction instead of cooperation. We choose to build rather than tear down." Council Leader Yethmore floated closer to the human admiral. "And if this choice were challenged? If someone threatened Earth or its allies?" Admiral Sullivan's expression became very serious. "Then we would remember who we used to be before we chose peace, and we would make sure the threat was ended permanently." The display screen showed footage from the captured Void Hunter ships. Human boarding teams moving through enemy vessels like ghosts. Alien crews falling unconscious without ever seeing their attackers. Weapons being disabled by technicians who understood systems better than their original designers. "This council has reviewed the tactical recordings," said Dr. Meltan. "Your forces gave no warning, sent no challenges, made no demands for surrender. They simply acted." "Correct," Admiral Sullivan confirmed. "When human forces go silent in battle, it means we have moved beyond negotiation to action. It means the time for talking has ended." Ambassador Kethvar stood up again. "Admiral, this council must ask, are there other human military capabilities that we should know about?" Admiral Sullivan considered the question carefully. "Ambassador, what you witnessed was a limited operation using conventional human tactics. We have other resources available if needed." "Other resources?" "Yes, but I hope this council will never need to see them." The implications of that statement sent a chill through the chamber. If what they had witnessed was considered limited and conventional by human standards, what were their true capabilities? Council Leader Yethmore called for a recess. For 3 hours, representatives from across the galaxy debated in private chambers, trying to understand what they had learned about their human allies. When the session resumed, the atmosphere in the chamber had changed completely. Gone were the casual attitudes and dismissive comments about human capabilities. In their place was a new respect, tinged with healthy caution. Admiral Sullivan, Council Leader Yethmore, announced, "This council has reached several decisions regarding recent events." "Yes, Council Leader?" "First, the human actions against the Void Hunters are officially commended as heroic and necessary. You saved countless lives and ended a threat to galactic civilization. Thank you, Council Leader." "Second, this council is implementing Emergency Protocol 847 to be known as the Silent Death Warning." Admiral Sullivan raised an eyebrow. "Council Leader?" "Protocol 847 states that any species engaging in hostile actions against human forces must immediately cease all aggressive behavior if human ships stop communicating during battle. Failure to comply will be considered an act of suicide." A grim smile crossed Admiral Sullivan's face. "That seems wise, Council Leader." "Third, this council formally requests that Earth consider sharing some of its military technologies with allied species for defensive purposes." "I will relay that request to my government," Admiral Sullivan replied. "However, I suspect the answer will be that our defensive technologies work best in human hands." Ambassador Kethvar stood up one final time. "Admiral, this council has won. Last question. How should the galaxy respond if we encounter another threat like the Void Hunters?" Admiral Sullivan looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. "The same way you always have, Ambassador. Attempt diplomatic solutions first. Try to find peaceful resolutions. Exhaust all options for cooperation and compromise. And if those efforts fail, then call us," Admiral Sullivan said simply, "and step aside." The council session ended with the passage of Protocol 847 and the official classification of humans as Strategic Peace Enforcement Specialists. The term was carefully chosen to be both accurate and non-threatening. Over the following months, word of the Void Hunter incident spread throughout the galaxy. The story grew in the telling, becoming legend. Some versions claimed that human ships could pass through solid matter. Others suggested that humans could read minds and predict the future. But the core truth remained constant. When humans went silent in battle, smart enemies surrendered immediately. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U's Harmony, back in its role as a diplomatic vessel. They were heading toward the Centauri system, where a trade dispute between two minor species needed mediation. It was exactly the kind of peaceful mission that humans were known for. "Captain," Amy Foster announced, "we're receiving a priority message from both sides of the dispute. They're requesting immediate negotiations and offering to accept any terms." "We suggest," Jake smiled. "Amy, did we identify ourselves when we entered the system?" "Yes, Captain. Standard diplomatic protocols. Then I suppose our reputation precedes us." Lisa Hayes looked up from her communication station. "Jake, both species are asking if we're here in a diplomatic capacity or the other kind." "Tell them we're here to help solve their problem peacefully," Jake replied, "just like we always do." "And if they ask about the other kind?" Jake's expression became serious for a moment. "Tell them that as long as everyone chooses peace, they'll never need to find out what the other kind looks like." The U's Harmony continued toward Centauri, carrying diplomats who were also warriors, peacekeepers who were also predators, and humans who had chosen to be humanity's best angels while remembering. They could also be its Mos Te,